Hello everyone and welcome to Health Issues. Carroll Baalbek in July 31, 2019 in her article on alcoholism defines alcoholism as the most severe form of alcohol abuse and involves the ability to manage drinking habits. It is also commonly referred to as alcohol use disorder. Alcohol use disorder is organized into three categories: mild, moderate, and severe. Each category has various symptoms and can cause harmful side effects. If left untreated, any type of alcohol abuse can spiral out of control. This is the health issues of TVuP, and we are here today to discuss important topics of health in our society today. This is Dr. Teddy Hermosa, your host for Health Issues. In this episode on alcohol abuse, we have our expert, family medicine practitioner and toxicologist, Dr. Janeshia of the Department of Family and Community Medicine and the National Poison Management and Control Center. He detoxifies persons with substance use disorder, has special interest in counseling families with addicted members. Hello, Alan, and welcome to Health Issues.
Hi, hello, good day, good day. Thank you for the invitation.
We haven't seen each other for some time, right?
Yes, you've been missing in action sa Philippine General Hospital.
We were neighbors your office is just beside the Division of Trauma at the Philippine General Hospital.
You've been doing good things for UP, so keep doing that.
So, let's start. What is alcohol abuse, Alan?
Well, there are criteria for alcohol use disorder, okay? But just so that we can simplify everything, okay? If you have been taking alcohol regularly for a year at least, and then after that, there are adverse consequences to your life because of the use of alcohol, you've got a disorder. Like, for example, if because of your drinking, you isolate yourself from your family. If because of your drinking you're getting low grades, or if you're working, then you come late, your work is suffering. And all of these things are precisely because you're taking alcohol, you've got a problem.
So I take alcohol, I attend social events, they'll hand me a glass of wine, glass of scotch, and I take this. Sometimes I take more than I can handle. So, what is there like a standard drink that will prevent me from abusing alcohol?
Well, it's a mix, no? Okay, so you have healthy, unhealthy effects of alcohol.
Correct.
Okay, as opposed to those the addictive effect of alcohol. So when we talk about the addictive effects of alcohol, it doesn't really matter how much you take. What matters is the effect on your life. So if you have adverse consequences because of continued drinking, adverse consequences to your life, then you have a use disorder. On the other hand, if we're talking about health effects, okay, so they have this. You mentioned standard drinks. No? One standard drink is supposed to be either a regular bottle of beer, or a shot of a regular glass of wine, or a regular shot glass, okay, of these hard liquors. Kasi
so I can drink all
sa
three?
Mga Pinoy,
So I can drink all three and I'm okay?
Oh, I'm going to define this now. Sa mga Pinoy kasi, when they say pa-shot lang tayo, kalahating baso yan. That's not a shot. Okay?
The shot is
the shot glass. Oh, yung mga jigger, which is about 30
one
to
jigger is one
45 ml. Yeah.
Correct.
So that's one standard drink.
Wait,
Now,
alcohol has different, I know for a fact that my shot of whiskey has different alcohol content than my glass of wine,
Yes.
red wine, and my bottle of beer.
so generally, beer would be anywhere from 3 to 6% alcohol.
3 to 6%.
And then after that, wine would be maybe 12 to 14%.
And that doubles already.
And then after that, for the gin or whiskey, we're talking about 40% alcohol. That one.
So that's a percentage of alcohol in that particular
Yes.
drink.
Yes.
The amount of alcohol that my body takes.
But you've heard 80 proof.
Correct.
Diba?
Yeah.
Now that's
So what's 80 proof?
What's
40
that's a
proof?
traditional way of it started in
They either write proof or volumes percent.
Yeah. So percent is that's the scientific metric way of doing it. But a long time ago, in order to be able to prove the potency, for example, of your whiskey, sinisindihan mo yan. So, but then they decided to give a number to it. And so 80 proof actually corresponds to 40%.
So I drink whether I drink beer or red wine or whiskey, I drink it to a level of what I call myself tipsy, which is enough for a social event for me to talk. Well, with the guests and with other people in your social event. Can you define medically what is intoxicated?
Yeah. The nice thing about alcohol is that we call it, there's a dose-dependent relationship. Meaning to say that if this is the dose, we know that these are the effects.
Okay.
And you can actually extrapolate backwards. Now, if
Correct.
these are the effects on you, probably this is the dose. And so, like driving, for example, anything above 50 milligrams per deciliter in the blood, okay? That's
50
already-
milligrams per deciliter would be equivalent to how many drinks?
You'd probably, because the standard drink would be about, if for men, okay, 2 standard drinks per day, that's about it.
So either 2 beers, and
2 beers or a mixture.
if I'm caught by the police or the MMDA and they do a breath analyzer on me, they will detect that I'm beyond the limit.
You'll probably, it depends, because there are people who drink chronic, who are regular drinkers, they metabolize it faster.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's different.
But then there are people who don't drink and they get hit rather quickly.
So they can
by
take
it.
1 shot and the effects of
Yeah,
intoxication.
that's
will be
right.
there.
That's right.
And you have people who drink 10 glasses of beer, 10 bottles,
But
and
they're
okay.
They seem okay, but that's also because these guys are chronic drinkers, and
Their liver is adjusted. The drug metabolizing enzymes are.
yes. Alternatively, they actually because there are Asians generally don't handle the alcohol very
Alcohol
well.
dehydrogenase deficiency
Right,
of
right.
Asians,
Oh.
correct.
So again, it depends
So
on
in
your
our
genetic
body, we
makeup
have
also.
an enzyme, right?
That's right.
Alcohol dehydrogenase. And Asians are known, Filipinos, including Filipinos, start to flare up and become red and sneeze and all these
There's
effects are
actually there are 2 enzymes here. The first
Correct.
one is alcohol dehydrogenase,
Dehydrogenase.
and that one converts it to this chemical called acetaldehyde.
Acetaldehyde.
Acetaldehyde, that's the one that causes you to flush.
flushing.
Okay.
The redness.
So it's not an
after.
allergy, but it's because of a lot of acetaldehyde in your blood. And then there's that second enzyme that converts it now so that eventually it becomes just water and carbon dioxide. Now it's that second enzyme that generally a lot of Asians are lacking.
I see. So that's
Okay.
the Asian, they call it something Asian.
It's the Asian flush.
Flush, yeah.
Oo.
And that's why the consumption of alcohol of Asians at a
Well, that-
small level
that-
start to flush.
Yeah, but that doesn't stop Asians from drinking anyway.
I know. The consumption, we're
They're
still
gonna
one of
drink
the
anyway.
highest. Tokyo, Japan,
Oh.
Korea,
And we're supposed to be
Philippines.
one of the biggest
One.
beer drinkers in the world.
Correct.
Gin drinkers.
Gin drinkers.
Not
as
beer,
well.
but gin.
So, when do you say a person is intoxicated?
So the first manifestation of intoxication, okay, is actually a pleasant one. And
That's the one I like.
Yeah,
I'm
you
just
be-
tipsy
you know,
and lightheaded.
you
And
become more talkative,
Talkative,
less
yes.
inhibited. That's why they serve punch at parties, you have
Correct.
cocktails, so that all of a sudden people
socialize better.
yeah, they lose their shyness.
Inhibitions, yeah.
And that's because alcohol inhibits the inhibitions.
Yeah, so if
Okay.
you're a normal
It
person
depresses
without
the
alcohol,
inhibitions.
you're shy. You're a lady, you want to talk to the handsome guy,
Yeah.
you're shy. But with the shot of alcohol,
So, di ba,
you lose that inhibition.
there's that saying that bago ka magtapat ng pag-ibig, iinom ka muna, bago ka lumigaw, iinom ka muna just to, pampalakas ng loob.
Correct.
Di
So
ba?
that's that effect. The
Yes,
effect on
yes.
the
Oo. And then,
inhibition of the inhibited behavior.
you depress the inhibition so
Depress
that
the inhibition.
what ordinarily you would not laugh at, you find funny this time.
Correct.
Okay. Diba? And then you can say things that
There are also
you don't
people
ordinarily say.
that are talkative, and when you give them alcohol, they just sit there quietly.
Yeah, there are those. No?
So the effects can vary.
But generally, so this one, it also gives you a feeling of euphoria. To some
Euphoria,
extent. Okay. And so you're feeling good. No? But if you drink more and you get to levels of 100 to 300 milligrams per deciliter, yan ang classic, di ba? Yung
Drunk.
pag naglalakad ka, pag-ewang-gewang, di ba? Pagkatapos
That's the one that
you
goes to
start
my ER with a
slur your
positive
speech.
Romborg test. Yeah,
Yeah,
They
that's the
cannot
one.
walk with their
You watch,
toe-to-toe.
when you watch the movies, di ba? Yung mga, hindi ako lasing, mga ganong klase tapos nagsasalita, then he's unsteady in his gait.
So it affects cerebellar movement. It affects your gait. It affects your speech. and it's no longer normal.
Yes. In fact,
that's the
then it
next
becomes
level.
pretty dangerous now because if you're driving,
Your reaction time is delayed.
yes, that's right. Okay. In fact,
you can fall asleep.
then if, for example, if you get to levels of 300 milligrams per deciliter, then this is the part where you can have seizures or you can lose consciousness. And when you get to 500 milligrams per deciliter or more, that's the time that people die at that level.
Those are the cases we see in the emergency department with alcoholic encephalopathy.
Yes.
Correct? So they now go into coma. We have to reverse it. We give them the 50-50 glucose to reverse
thiamine,
it.
no?
And thiamine and vitamin B.
But no, some of the young people, and you understand this is supposed to be for the young people, no?
Correct.
So they don't realize that alcohol is actually a poison. No?
Correct. And
like again, it has a social function, okay? But this guy named Paracelsus, he's the father of the great-great-grandfather of toxicology, said the difference between a medicine and a poison is the dose at which it's given. So given
the difference between a medicine and a poison
is the
dose at which it's given.
Yes. So for
And
example,
I was young too, and our drinking were binge drinking,
that's right.
which is about dose.
Now, binge drinking, they say, is if you drink and then you reach levels of, di ba sabi ko, 50 that's the euphoria, talkative.
Correct.
100, that's the time when you start having difficulty keeping your balance, okay? If you drink and you reach 80, okay, that's already considered a binge.
Wow.
You know?
So is there like a safe level of drinking?
This is the advice of at least this is for Caucasians.
Okay.
So we have to extrapolate for
Asians.
For Asians. But for Caucasians, okay, doctors have determined that you want to stay within 2 standard drinks per day.
2 drinks.
For men, okay? And 1 standard drink per day for women.
For women. Why is there a gender difference?
Well, the men kasi are
bigger.
They're bigger. They're bigger, no?
So it's about per weight.
In terms of muscle mass, it's bigger, so they can
the
handle
dose
more.
is dosed by weight, right?
Yeah,
so if
so-
you have a bigger body mass index, you probably can take more alcohol.
Now, and here's the deal, okay? 2 drinks per day,
Correct.
but if you don't drink, it's not like a sick leave, diba, where you can accumulate it. I didn't drink for 6 days. On day 7, I can have
So
14
on Friday,
drinks, diba?
I can get more drinks now.
No, it's not that. You use it or lose it.
Okay. So it's at that single moment that when you drink, you're allotted 2 drinks, and beyond that, most likely.
Then anything beyond that, then you start tempting fate. That's when harmful effects can happen.
You can either get violent, you can either get
Well, it depends.
driving.
It depends on people. It depends on how people's constitution, but that would be pretty much the safe. Okay, and okay, so there is some truth to the statement that there are some heart benefits, cardiac benefits for people who drink wine.
Yeah,
Okay?
this is promoted by the French winemakers. So.
Although there's some debate: is it the alcohol or is it really the antioxidants you find in wine?
The tannins in the red
Right.
wine, that's what
Okay.
they
So, but when you go beyond 2 drinks for men and 1 drink for women per day, then you lose that benefit. Now, I said we have to extrapolate for Asians are smaller.
Correct.
Okay. So, and I don't think there have been studies yet that have determined what is a healthy level for Asians.
So there's still no widespread study on what is the safe level for Asians.
Or what,
Because of the absence of that enzyme that metabolizes.
And most of the studies really have been done on Europeans,
Correct.
North Americans, no? And even they will say that this is not, and let me be clear, okay? When I say this is the recommended level, okay, this is a recommended level for people who are already drinking.
Okay.
But if you're not drinking, the doctors will say, don't start.
And if you're not drinking, if you're a kid, don't start, right?
But if you are drinking already, then stay within this level because this is the level at which, generally it's safe.
So Alan, when we
So may
talk,
pa na yan, there's already, may palugid na yun, okay?
so okay, when we talk about alcohol, the specific alcohol we're talking about is not isopropyl alcohol, right?
No.
It's
That's,
ethanol.
Ethanol.
Just couple of months ago, in the Christmas season,
Yes.
we had Christmas parties where several people were poisoned.
Not several.
Because
500. More than
500 people from
More than
Laguna and
500.
Quezon were poisoned by methanol contained in lambanog.
In Lambanog.
I heard you were the one on duty at the Philippine
Yes.
General Hospital at that time. Can you tell
Unfortunately,
me your
I was the one
experience?
there.
Okay, let's talk about this methanol toxicity and poisoning.
Well, so methanol is an alcohol. Okay. Ethanol is an alcohol, but it's ethanol that we drink.
Yes,
Okay, that's the one. That's why in
drinkable
beer,
one.
wine, and whiskey, and etc. Et
Methanol
okay?
is toxic.
Now, methanol, that's the toxic one.
That's toxic to the
it's
human
one of
body.
those. It's called a toxic alcohol.
Correct.
And the reason why it's so toxic is because the same enzyme that breaks down our ethanol, okay, from beer and wine, that's the same one that breaks down methanol. Except that instead of producing acetaldehyde, it produces formaldehyde, aka formalin.
And that's toxic to the human
Yeah,
body.
that's toxic, yes. And then this formalin is converted further to formic acid. And
Destroys
so,
your eyesight.
So you go blind.
So
you
the
know, it
blindness
affects
was one
the
of those,
heart. You get comatose, and there were mortalities here. People who died.
And how did methanol get into the lambanog?
Well, I'm not an expert in distilling, but I was informed, by
Yes.
somebody who does it. It's that it's really one of those things that are formed in the process of the distillation to lambanog, no? And so
you really have ethanol
so there is
and
a certain
methanol.
amount. There is a certain amount. Okay.
But
I was informed that the people who do, they are actually able to process it, so they'll separate it out.
they'll redistill it. They said redistill it to several steps so that all the methanol
So
is
the
removed.
methanol is gone.
But
Okay.
in this case, I think a big order was taken
Yes.
for a party that was scheduled.
Now, the interesting thing, there's another source of methanol.
Yes.
Okay, the other source is that there are people who actually add it. No?
Add the methanol.
Yes. Okay.
That's not good.
Okay, but this is, again, we don't know if this is what happened, okay? But we are aware that it has happened in the past,
Yes.
okay? Where, because
It's referred to your center, right?
the lambanog also is, it's expensive.
Correct.
And so if you sell it,
You
you're going to
increase your
spend a lot of money.
volume,
So what you
yeah.
have to do, what people do then is they get some lambanog and they mix it now with ethyl alcohol. Okay, and so that has a lambanog flavor. Okay, but it's not pure lambanog, so it's ethyl alcohol. And then this is the one that they now retail.
What I heard is, if you add other things, that's not considered lambanog because the process
Yeah,
of
so-
making lambanog should be actually a natural process
Oh.
from fermentation.
So,
But let me ask you,
Oh.
one interesting thing that happened there was the director of Philippine General Hospital at that time ordered several boxes of
vodka.
vodka
Initially
and
vodka,
gin,
then
and then
later
later on gin because they ran out of vodka.
Well, vodka was too expensive, so we decided to go to
Vodka was too expensive, but gin became the
So-
order. Can you explain why PGH said, I'm sure there was a Christmas party that time, but
Yeah.
it wasn't going to be used for the party, right?
No, it's going to be used for the methanol patient.
Okay, so how is gin or vodka useful for the methanol toxicity?
Well, because, like I said, diba, there's an enzyme that breaks down the alcohol, the ethanol. Okay, the same enzyme also breaks down methanol. But between methanol and ethanol, that enzyme likes ethanol better.
So it's a competitive inhibition.
Yes,
so you,
yes.
you give the patient, they shot it?
So
It's-
give the patient
how
ethanol.
many drinks were given to them?
Oh,
More
yeah,
than two.
We had to compute it.
Okay,
We had to calculate it at a level that was they couldn't drive.
So we don't have to do that. But basically the treatment,
The treatment
antidote for methanol poisoning
was ethanol.
is ethanol or
Ethanol.
alcohol that we're talking
That's
about.
the one. That's
Wonderful.
the one.
Interesting. It's
Oh.
a paradox, huh?
And so our patients, they were, nakataas ang kilay nila. Because what? Kainom lang namin that you're going to be giving us gin or vodka.
So they
But that
took
was-
it orally.
So they took it, yeah. But they took it in a measured dose.
Yes, now
Okay.
now as a medication
Every 6 hours, every 4
This is
hours.
given
yung
as a
anong klase,
medication.
Yeah. oo.
to compete with the
To compete
very
with the
very
methanol.
interesting. So Tell me now, let's go back to regular alcohol, your beer, your wine, your whiskey, and all other vodka and gin. Are the effects to people the same, or are there different effects?
It depends, because there are people who are hit right away with it, okay, and there's this case that he just takes one bottle of beer, he's wild, and so that's already harmful drinking, adverse
Correct.
effect. But if he continues drinking in spite of that, then you know that he's got a problem. He's got a use disorder. There are people
So
who
that's
can
called
take
use disorder,
Yeah.
because they cannot hold a drink.
Well, because bad things happen in their lives because of the drinking, and they continue to do it anyway.
Correct.
And then you've got people.
That's a very common excuse of in the ER, the domestic violence. The husband always says, nakainom po ako kaya nagawa ko sa asawa ko yan.
But that's also a reason why it's supposed to be, what's the term for it?
It's an alcohol
in
disorder.
law, if you're under the influence of alcohol, it is
Aggravating.
aggravating circumstance.
It's an aggravating circumstance instead of
Instead of
mitigating.
yes, mitigating.
Mitigating. Now, when do you overdose on ethanol or alcohol per se? I drink beer. How many beers should I drink? The whole case before I overdose?
Like I said, because people metabolize it differently. If you're not a drinker, then you're a slower metabolizer of alcohol. If you drink a lot, then you're a faster metabolizer of alcohol. And the reason for that is because alcohol, if you keep exposing the liver to a regular dose of alcohol, then the liver says, there's plenty of poison in my body. I better increase the number of enzymes I have to deal with it. And so you develop a certain tolerance for it. Okay, so you have the typical war stories about drinking. So, I can take 2 cases and still be okay. Ganong klase, no?
Sounds like my famous last words, huh?
But that's because your liver has responded to the presence of toxin
Correct.
in your body, and it's trying to save you from dying by increasing the number of the activity and the amount of enzymes to metabolize it. Okay, and so because of this, there's some variation about bakit tinatamaan ng ibang mas mabilis, bakit mas mabagal yung iba. So it depends partly on the degree of tolerance you develop. It also depends partly on your genetic makeup.
Is there a definition of who an alcoholic is? If there's alcoholism, which we defined earlier. If I like to drink and I like to drink, when do you say I am an alcoholic?
Well, first there's that term, when are you a heavy drinker? Okay. And here we're talking about health effects. Okay, not yet addiction, not yet disorder. But a heavy drinker, for men, we're talking about, in 1 week, 15 drinks, 15 standard drinks.
15 drinks. So 2 drinks a day.
So
if I drank every day the 2 drinks, I become that level, heavy drinker.
If you drink 2 a day for 7 days, that's just 14.
Yeah, that's still one more.
So if you drink more than that, then, okay, for women, it's 8. Okay.
I see. So can a person become dependent without being addicted to the alcohol? Okay.
Well, no. By dependence and addiction, we'll consider that synonyms. Okay.
Okay.
But can you be a heavy drinker and not be addicted and not be dependent? Yeah, there are people. There are people who can drink a lot, and then when they don't want to drink, they just stop.
They just stop. Okay. But there are people who look for it. They don't have their 15 drinks.
Or there are people who start drinking and then they can't stop.
Correct.
And the typical story there is they can't understand why people leave half a glass of beer or half a glass of wine and not finish it, because they need to finish it. And then they drink to the point of where they drink to the point of drunkenness.
To the point of drunkenness. Is
in other words, they can't
alcoholism
stop.
considered a disease?
Yes. Okay. In fact, the current view now is that it is a chronic relapsing disease.
Chronic relapsing.
Yes. In other words, if you have this condition, if you have this disorder, then even if you've stopped, okay, there is still a big possibility that you might drink again. You might do the kind of harmful drinking that you were doing before. So it's like smoking. When you smoke, you stop and then you can restart anytime. And you're back to it again. So same thing here.
My dad was, in your definition, an alcoholic. because he had like a bottle of gin every night. Can I inherit
Yes, you can. Yes,
the
you can.
alcoholism?
In fact, there are about 13 genes now that
Okay.
are associated with heavy drinking, okay, and/or alcohol use disorder.
So alcohol use disorder is genetically transmitted to children.
There is a genetic component
There is a
to
genetic
it.
component.
So if you have an alcoholic, for example, in one generation, then don't be surprised if there's another alcoholic in,
In the next generation.
But it's not the mathematical kind of genetic.
Correct.
That you
There's
see,
the
for
Mendelian
example,
principles of gene
mga
transmission.
white-eyed fruit flies,
Correct,
and things like that. No?
Correct,
So it's certainly more complicated than that. And you can imagine a situation where you have the genes that will make you that will make you vulnerable to being an alcoholic. But if you grow up in an environment where alcohol is not available, okay, or
You convert to a religion that prohibits alcohol.
and you don't also have the psychological environment,
Okay.
for it.
It will
then-
not manifest.
Yeah,
It will
you
not
probably
manifest.
won't be an alcoholic.
So you said alcoholism is a disease, right? You said that earlier. Can it be cured?
Okay, so we come back to that term, chronic relapsing.
Chronic
Relapsing
disorder.
disease. Okay?
Disorder or
And
disease.
here's a metaphor, partial metaphor that I use because there's certainly some basis to it. No? When you use alcohol or methamphetamine, marijuana, etc., and you use these things repeatedly, essentially what happens is that your brain recables itself. No? Now the brain's supposed to be a whole bunch of cables that are connected to each other. No?
I thought the brain was wireless.
And then, so what happens here is that, and we'll take a step back first. Okay, let's not talk about alcoholism. We'll talk about
Substance.
musicians.
Yes.
Okay, musicians.
Writers. Edgar Allan Poe
So
wrote every
musicians,
time he was drunk.
like for example, musicians, left and right brain have to keep talking to each other.
Okay.
And so there is that part of the brain that connects left and right. Okay,
The corpus
that
callosum.
is thicker among professional musicians compared to those who aren't.
That's the corpus callosum.
Yes, that's right.
Anatomically, we call
And
it
the reason
corpus
for that is
callosum.
because of the repetition, reading the notes, playing. The left and right brain
Just to
keep talking
interact.
to each other. The brain responds by making the cables thicker and making the cable connections greater. Okay. Now we're talking here.
4G na siya. 5G na siya.
We're talking here about musicians, huh?
Okay.
Which is music, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Accountants will form cables for accounting. Doctors will form it for making
Empathy.
diagnoses. Engineers, same thing. Okay. The key here is repetition. Okay. You form the cables so that what you keep repeating becomes very efficient. No. Here's the problem. You do it often enough. You form the cables. The cables don't go away. Okay. So you have
So it's like a scar.
Yeah,
It's like a scar.
well, like you probably learned to ride a bike when you were a kid. And if you haven't ridden a bike for years and years, I'll give you a bike, okay? You'll be wobbly, but you'll learn.
Correct.
You'll
will
go
come
back,
It will come back
because
quickly.
you're cable ready. Okay?
So this is the chronic relapsing
So
thing.
same thing. You've got a person, for example, has alcohol use disorder. He has the cables. He's been off alcohol for 10
Detoxified,
years,
yeah,
etc.
detoxified.
He's gone through rehabilitation. Then all of a sudden, he gets triggered. There's exposure. There's access. He has a psychological and environmental setting for it. He drinks again. He'll have problems.
What's
again.
the relapse rate for alcoholics?
It's hard to tell, huh? But what I do know is this: any rehab center who says that that their relapse-free rate, okay, is greater than 60%, is probably doing a great deal of marketing.
Oh, that high, 60%.
What usually, because relapses sometimes are the rule. Although there's this jargon among rehabilitation centers that you have to distinguish a relapse from a slip. Okay. Because if, for example, the rehab center is supposed to teach you how to deal with your triggers,
Your desire to take.
and if, for example, if you drink, but you realize, oh my God, it happened again, so I have to go back to the stuff that my rehab taught me, then that's called a slip.
I see.
But if you drink and then you forget everything and then you go back to what you were doing, that's a relapse. Okay, but these are the
Interesting.
This is the jargon by
The
the
slip.
rehab centers.
There's also such a thing that I learned in med school as alcohol withdrawal.
Yes.
Okay. What is alcohol withdrawal?
When your body becomes accustomed to the present, the cells of your body become accustomed to the constant presence of alcohol. And alcohol is a depressant. Okay, and that's the reason why you go
to sleep.
Go to sleep. Okay, you have coma, because there's that constant presence of a chemical depressant in your system. Your brain tries to adapt by increasing the chemicals in your brain to wake you up. So these are the excitatory neurotransmitters to counteract the depressant effects of alcohol. Now, what happens is, because you have to function, okay? So you've got levels of alcohol constantly present. Your brain increases the amount of your excitatory neurotransmitters to wake you up. If you suddenly remove the alcohol, this one doesn't go down. It remains high for a few days, maybe 3 to 5. And because you've got a lot of excitatory neurotransmitters in your brain, then you get the tremors, hallucinations, you can't sleep, you're very irritable.
Irritable. So those are the symptoms of withdrawal.
Those are the symptoms of withdrawal. So,
now, how do you treat withdrawal symptoms?
Oh, well, what we do now is, because there's no more alcohol, right? So we now have to give a depressant.
Another depressant.
So usually we give diazepam. Okay?
To calm the...
Yes, and then as the neurotransmitters go down, we decrease the dose of diazepam
until the withdrawal symptoms is over.
Yes, but...
And you're detoxified. By that time, the withdrawal symptoms are, that's defined as detoxification.
Yes, you're detoxified, okay? But apart from that, you have to take a look at the organs in the body that are affected by the alcohol. And that's part of the detoxification process.
The other parts.
The liver, if you have ulcers, you're bleeding because of the alcohol. So you correct all of that, plus the withdrawal, then you're detoxified.
Multi-system.
But the detoxification doesn't deal with the cables.
Correct.
No?
Rehab will deal with that.
That's where you need rehab. Now,
what is rehab?
The good rehabilitation centers are actually, these are training programs, okay? Where it's because of repetition that you develop these cables, these habits, okay, of drinking. And the cables will actually connect. Things like if you're sad, then you drink, you feel happier. You keep repeating that. Pretty soon, you have a cable that connects sadness with drinking. So once you're sad, you automatically drink.
Automatically look for a drink.
Or there are other triggers, like some people, when they feel angry, okay, they have to drink to calm them down. Now you have a cable connecting anger with drinking.
And they're depressed.
Yes.
They call their friends and they go drinking.
Then there are also external things, like for example, when a friend says, "Oh, inom ka na," then you
peer pressure.
Then that becomes connected as well, and you do it often enough. Then you have you form the cables for it. So the hard part here, though, is you have to identify what these triggers are, and then the good rehabilitation centers will now train you to deal with them in a different way.
In a different way. So that's rehab.
But
that's rehab.
So instead of I'm angry with my wife and so I drink, I'm angry with my wife and so I count to 20. I write down the issues. I phrase what I'm going to say. I talk to her calmly. So you want to repeat that over and over and over again, so that now you develop the cables for dealing with anger that way instead of drinking. In a sense, like the metaphor here would be you're trying to develop bypass cables. So that you don't use your alcohol cables, you use these other ones that are better for you. And
so rehab is really more of behavior modification. It's really a program to modify behavior regarding the use or the alcohol disordered use.
And the behavior is modified by one, repetition, okay, of these new skills, and also by by giving people a new way to look at life and a new way of dealing with their problems, a new way of looking at themselves. So there's some insight that has to take place apart from the behavior modification.
Well, I'd like to say let's drink to that, but that's probably not the correct thing. But Alan, do you have any other message to our young people who view these episodes and talk about whether alcohol should be an important part of their health consciousness?
Well, I think that I think there's wisdom there's wisdom to the practice in some countries, not to let young people drink until they're 21.
Strictly enforce the 18 and above. They
21.
ask for ID in the US, right? You have to have an ID.
It's because the part of your brain that is responsible for judgment, for prudential thinking.
It's not yet developed before that age.
Yes, so you have to wait until you're age 19, 20, 21 before that thing's fully developed. And if, for example, you drink and you influence it with, alcohol or these other mind-altering substances, then you might actually do something bad to the development of that part of your brain. So
Alan,
just avoid it for a while and then when you do drink, stay within the healthy levels of drinking.
thank you very much, Alan. That's been a very interesting discussion on alcohol disorder, alcohol use disorder, and I'm sure our viewers out there have learned many points about this particular health issue and health problem, the disease of alcoholism and how to cure it. And I have only one advice for the viewers: drink moderately.